Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today on another Ministry Platform webinar. Today, we are talking about the front porch integration. And as usual, we have Chris and myself as your lovely hosts. And I guess I shouldn't say that Chris is lovely. I don't know. What should it be? Handsome,
Listen,
dashing.
I'll take lovely. Lovely works.
Okay. So we are happy to be here with you today. We're also joined by Derek from Front Porch. So he's going to be giving the highlight and the overview and answering some questions for you. I know he and Chris have been working together on this and are very excited to be able to present it to y'all. As always, submit your questions in the question chat. I will be monitoring the questions and interrupting when appropriate. And happy to get your questions answered as much as we can today. And as always, just a reminder, MPUG is coming up. I think we are like in the 6-week window, which is kind of crazy. We are so excited. Our team is working hard getting prepared for MPUG to make it a spectacular event as usual. And we hope to see you guys there. It is an awesome time. No webinars in the works at the moment between now and MPUG, as we've put all of our attention towards MPUG, but we'll have a bunch of great webinars this summer. I've already been brainstorming and have some really fun ideas. So looking forward to more great webinar activity coming up. So I'm going to hand it over to Chris. Chris is going to give a little bit of a update and background on the integration, and then we will let Derek give us the tour.
Yeah, so really excited to have the opportunity to work on this integration with Derek, and we're very excited to introduce him and Front Porch. And if you're here, you probably already have kind of an idea of what Front Porch is, but it really answers the question, what if we could find out and capture more data from all these people using our free Wi-Fi every weekend? So Derek and I, we started chatting, I want to say about 6 months ago, and then we got through some preliminary things and then really ramped up and got the integration working. But without further ado, here's Derek Maxon from Front Porch, and he's going to be talking about this. And Derek, you can pull me or Megan in whenever necessary.
Great. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Megan. We're really excited to be participating today on the webinar and kind of telling the story about Front Porch and Wi-Fi presence, and about how we can connect that directly with Ministry Platform for Ministry Platform churches. It's been really great working with you, Chris, and your team, and we're excited to be able to meet in person at MPUG. That'll be a lot of fun for us. So thanks for inviting us. Well, just to give you a little bit of a overview of Front Porch, and we've been in business for about 20 years. And primarily, we've done work for the telecommunications and cable industry in the United States and internationally. And just about 2 years ago, I went to a leadership network event with a number of churches where they were talking about how tech and data and ministry engagement could work together. At that time, the recently retired executive pastor from one of our country's leading churches was there talking about some of the dashboards that they have at their church for managing their ministry, their campuses. And so he presented a variety of different data points that they have. And then partway through the conversation, he said, one of the issues, though, is that we don't really know who is attending our churches, because unless someone physically puts a check in the offering that weekend, or if they check in their children, or a few people who actually tear off and fill out the card on the bulletin, we really don't know who's there every day. And so I thought about some of the technology that we'd done at Front Porch and thought about how it could be made to work for churches. And so at that event, I asked some of the churches who were there, I said, if we could use people's phones to be registered to your church management database, how would that change your understanding of who's at church on any given weekend? So we started doing that. We wanted to close the gap of the known and the unknown of church attendance. That instead of as many people who are really coming to church anonymous, that we would give them the opportunity to become known in the church. Give them the opportunity to engage with the church, and perhaps in a way that would be maybe less threatening to the people who are coming. But there was that issue of finding out that who is there, because finding the accurate attendance is hard. Not everyone has kids. Few use connection cards. But accurate personal attendance helps leaders to disciple adults. And ultimately, what we're really about is wanting to connect people in the church to shepherding, to ministry within the church. So let me talk a little bit more about what actually happens then with Front Porch and Ministry Platform. When a smartphone connects to the church Wi-Fi for at least a minimum visit, we'll say that's 20 minutes by default in our system, then we can recognize that that person was on campus. They were there. And then an interaction is placed in the Ministry Platform. So with a number of different qualifying or capable Wi-Fi platforms now, we have 9, we're working on 2 more right now. A person can register their phone, and then whenever they come on campus, there's some information about that. It not only works on the weekends during services, but during the week for other programs and things that are happening. So
hey,
here's
Derek,
how it works.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Yeah, so going backwards one slide, it's not really, I mean, mobile phone are probably the predominant, but it's really any Wi-Fi device, right?
Correct. Yeah, so it can be a, a tablet. It can even be a PlayStation. But I'm not sure how many people are bringing those to church. I know we got a few of them in youth ministry at our church, but yeah, any Wi-Fi enabled device.
Awesome.
Cool. Just wanted to pull that distinction out in case there were any thoughts.
Sure. So the first step in a device then becoming known at the church is to onboard that device. And the way in which this happens is through Captive Portal. You may be familiar with Captive Portal, but you may not be familiar with the term Captive Portal. A Captive Portal is what happens when we go to a hotel or maybe an airport or even Starbucks. And before we connect to the Wi-Fi, but before we can use the Wi-Fi, there may be a button that we have to click, terms and conditions we have to accept. And so here's one then that we've worked out with Ministry Platform. And so the reason for having name and email on this is that this is how it connects that device to that person. So let's say I come onto the campus at Church in the Nativity, and I put in my first name, my last name, and my email. So that then I click Get Online, and real quickly, Ministry Platform then does a lookup against the database and says, I found that person, I found Derek. And it returns to Front Porch the Ministry Platform person ID number. So then that ID number then is retained in Front Porch. We'll explain why in a few minutes. If I'm new, then that information can be used to build a new record in the database. And one of the things that we found that's really exciting is that people don't tend to spoof their name and email. Between 5 and 10% of the users who come on and connect on the Wi-Fi put in fake credentials. Almost all the time, we see people put in real credentials, which tells us that the church and the people in the church have a trusted connection. So after that person then comes online, every time that person visits church, we're able to detect that, and then the information gets sent over to Ministry Platform and ends up in the table of Wi-Fi devices and Wi-Fi device sessions, so that my device then would become known to me, and each time that I come, records get put into the Wi-Fi device sessions table in Ministry Platform. Then this empowers the type of dashboarding and reporting that gives us a lot of information about what's happening in the church. First of all, we see here just a summary of campuses. So here's a church then, at this point in time, taken on a weekday, there were 299 people at this campus. And then at the various campuses, there were more and less. So we've also then begun to work, we work currently with over 40 churches. And here's what some of the things that we're discovering with some of our churches is giving us information into. we can understand trends at services and campuses. Here's an example of flow over the past couple of months for their midweek youth ministry, and then their 3 Sunday services. They're 9:15, 11:15, and 5 o'clock. So each one of those comes up on the system. You can see on the week of February 3rd that student ministries that week was canceled due to snow in that community. So we can see all of this information, and it helps us to understand then what's going on. Probably the most powerful thing that we've seen, though, is the ability to connect with visitors sooner. As I mentioned earlier, that most people fill out their actual name and email address when they connect with the system. Here we have an example of a visitor report from one of our churches from just this past week. And so all of these users put in credentials into their captive portal. They had 22 new visitors on their captive portal this particular week. They only had about 10 visitors check into their visitor table on the same weekend. And so the thing that we learn then from this is that people are more likely to indicate being a visitor through the captive portal than they are through going to the visitor table. And while ultimately we all want to engage in relationship with people who are coming to the church, it may be that the right first step for people is to say, okay, well, here's my name and email, and we can start there. So connecting with visitors sooner is a big power, and then also being able to connect with people who haven't been at church recently. So here we have a report also from one of our churches, and there are 18 devices that haven't been seen at the church since February 3rd. And because of the connection then that we have into the church management system, we actually get the name and the email address. If your church has multiple campuses, you would be able to get the campus name there in order to be able to route this perhaps to the correct campus pastor or ministry staff. And we can also find out, okay, is this person new? So we see in the 3rd row on this report that a person named Nolan came to the church on February 3rd. And that is the only visit that person's made. However, if we look down at the bottom, the last row, Deanna started attending in December, maybe came to a service a week or so before Christmas, and made 3 visits, but she hasn't been seen at the church since February 3rd. Perhaps Deanna's a good person to reach out to and say, hey, thanks for coming and participating with us. We'd like to invite you to a lunch to meet with pastors and other staff people at the church, get connected. Also, you may want to follow up with Tom there in the middle, because Tom's been at the church for 15 years, but Tom hasn't been, at least Tom's mobile phone hasn't been at church for the last 6 weeks. So this gives actionable insights to connect with people in the church. One of our churches in Seattle, Washington had, in my view, probably the most fun weekend of church last fall. On Friday night, they had their trunk or treat event with hundreds of local kids coming in costume for trunk or treat. And then on Saturday night, they had the comedian John Christ there. And as you can see then, they had thousands of new devices come onto their network. And on Friday night for the carnival, they had 700 new devices. 26.3 of those registered with their name and email. The next night for the John Christ event, they had 1,500 new devices and 60% registered. One of our churches also then, starting last Easter, we wanted to track the stickiness of new visitors. And so we started out then with understanding who was there on Easter and discovering how many people who visited on Easter also came to at least 3 services in the 4 months following. And the answer was 42% of them. And of those visitors who came, over 700 visitors, 37% of them had also come in one of the most recent 4 weeks in June and July. And so LCBC was able to understand their visitor trends very successfully through this. That's another slide there that I really already talked about, but that's okay. When a smartphone connects to the church Wi-Fi, and that person registers, that interaction is placed in ministry platform. And that's how we close the loop on all of these devices and who they belong to in the church. We support a number of different Wi-Fi products and a couple more that aren't on this slide. And we really like to be able to bring people on board. And so if you have some Wi-Fi equipment that isn't one of these, make sure you still talk to us, because if there's a way that we can make it work, we want to. So we're going to take some question and answer. And I also want to mention that while you're here on the call, you can go over to frontporch.com/presence, our church's page, and we have a form at the bottom of the page where you can submit your information and get started with Front Porch, and we can follow up with you after the call. But now I'm ready for some questions and answers.
Awesome. Well, the main question that's in here right now, so ads questions, people. Whatever questions you have, please put them in the question box. We have a question from Stacy. This is probably more of a question for Chris, but how does, and if so, how does this flow into the activity log? So.
Yeah, so we've tried to take an approach initially of not forcing each church to use this data in any specific way. And what I mean by that is our first church didn't actually want the data going directly to an event. So what I want to say is right now we're treating this a little bit the same way like we did background checks. We've got the initial part of the integration up and running where Front Porch is delivering data to us and indirectly into your platform, and we've got devices, and devices are being mapped to people. But really the next phase of this is going to be defined by the community. And by that, I think some of our churches are going to be excited about being able to automatically have people checked in to, say, any church service. If I have a session that was there during a church service, I'm going to be checked into an event. And by being checked into that event, I get activity log data added to us. We've got another church who is just going to go ahead and manually add activity log data based on Wi-Fi presence, maybe on a daily basis. So at the moment, we've really done like step one of this, which is the data is now all flowing in. And step two is probably going to be a little bit more of the customization task, more of the ministry platform-esque piece of it, where you can decide how you want to do it. You know, Kevin in our professional services team has already come up with a model where maybe we just create one event per day, and it's going to be a type called Wi-Fi presence, and we automatically check known people into that event. But right now, what I want to say is it's really starting. The starting point is the integration is up. We're getting the data is flowing in. The great news about Ministry Platform is as each church decides how and where they want this data to be applied, it's very easy to retroactively apply the sessions. One of the things that I think we didn't really dive too much into is, but Derek, we went over quickly kind of a piece of the integration, but in the event you get devices that are added to your database where we can't make a match for some reason, we're still collecting that data. So the good news is at some point in the future when a match can be made, we can actually retroactively apply all of that activity as well. So a lot of fun possibilities there that we're still exploring, and frankly, the first 5 or 10 people who get on are going to really be able to help shape. So we have our first 2 churches already up and running kind of as our beta testers, and we're looking forward to adding some more.
Awesome. So if the data provided by the person connecting doesn't match somebody in the system, are they automatically added? Does the church need to add them using the Add a Family tool? How does that person get added as a real contact in Ministry Platform?
At the moment, we're not adding new people based on Wi-Fi. We are collecting the first, last, and email along with the device. So whatever they plug into the captive portal is making its way to the device page, but we are not yet creating new people because, as you know, I know Derek said that churches are seeing only about 10% garbage data out there. but we're always cautiously optimistic. So we're working on a couple of strategies whereby we may allow the church to create an email template that automatically gets emailed to unknown people with a link, and when they click the link, that contact data would then be, more or less exploded into a real contact record. We've got a couple of things that we're in the middle of working on to help with we don't want to just create contacts willy-nilly, but we would have some vehicle for verifying that they really are good data.
Yeah, want to protect that data quality for sure. Have a question here about saying Apple and Google tend to make it harder to track devices, maybe spoofing things. Is this true? And how likely is that possible that might make the same device not trackable in the future?
Sure, I'll take that one. The devices, when they are not known to the church Wi-Fi by iOS and Android, they don't use their real MAC address. And so devices that are not registered are not trackable. And that also then provides a privacy thing for the people who are coming to church, but they don't want to participate in this. And that we think is really good. Only when somebody decides then to connect their device to the Wi-Fi is their real MAC address of their device used. And those MAC addresses actually don't change. And so you do get an accurate and consistent record from that device, but only after they've chosen to connect.
Question about some hardware here. If we have an existing Wi-Fi network in place and somebody has already used our current Wi-Fi, will setting this up make them need to log in again or accept the terms and conditions again, or what is that reset that happens once this integration is in place?
We usually like to apply the settings to their existing guest network at the church so that people's devices will be inclined to connect to it. People do need to register their device once on the captive portal with using the form. Otherwise, that ministry platform front porch connection can't happen. But once they've done that, then we just bypass the captive portal for them forever. So once we know a device, they're not needing to punch in their name and email every week or every time they come to church. Just really one time to do that registration step.
How does it work if somebody doesn't provide their name? Like, how do they still connect if they're choosing not to complete the captive portal form? Like, what's the way around it, or how is that?
So that can be based on how the church would like to do that. The default way in which it works right now is that if you put in your name and email address, but it's not really your name and email address, you're still going to get access.
Mm-hmm.
So we really aren't there to kind of create a wall that people have to pass over, okay? We're hoping that people will punch in their information. Usually people do. But if someone doesn't want to, they're still going to be able to get on the Wi-Fi.
Elephant in the room. What is the cost?
So the cost of the front porch solution is based on the church size, and it ranges from $600 to $2,000 per year, and includes everything that you need.
Okay, the data that's collected, is it all live in ministry platform? Does it live in front porch and ministry platform? How does it live both places, or does it just pass through front porch and actually live and reside in ministry platform?
There's two ways that can work. It can reside only in ministry platform, and a handful of the reports that we have would not be able to be used. So like that visitor report is not able to be used in that particular situation. But there is a way in which it can all live in ministry platform. But regardless of whether it lives in ministry platform, then you also take advantage of some of those front porch reports. The data only belongs to the church, and we never share that data or use it for marketing or advertising or anything like that.
What hardware or software resides on our network?
So the front porch Wi-Fi presence solution is a cloud-based solution, and so there's no new hardware to install on the network. We just need to be able to communicate with the Wi-Fi controller some people's Wi-Fi controllers are on site and some of them are in the cloud, but we need to be able to connect to that, and then to be able to handle the captive portal functions for them. So there can sometimes be a little bit of networking magic that needs to be put together.
Networking magic, I like it. Cool. If a device is found for somebody who's already in ministry platform, where and how is that link shown? So I don't know, Chris, do we have any data that we can show? What I know Derek showed the new pages.
It's connected to the contact record through the device. I mean, that's the very simple piece is it's connected via the device. The device is linked to the contact record that it matches.
Great. Every time they log in, or every time they, sorry, I shouldn't say log in, every time they connect, if they've already completed the captive portal form, are they still presented with it every week, or does it know that they've already completed it and it's not going to splash again on their screen?
Yeah, we definitely only want to have that registration step be a one-time step. And so once they're known to our system, we know basically once we know their ministry platform person ID, then that's all that we need, and we bypass the captive portal from that point forward.
Awesome.
Now, is the converse true? If you don't get a ministry platform ID for them, will they have to basically go through captive portal every time?
Correct. Yes. If they don't put in an ID, or if we don't get an ID back from ministry platform as a result of that captive portal, then we treat that as an unknown device, not necessarily a new device, but an unknown device.
Okay.
Derek, can you go back to the page of supported Wi-Fi systems? I know you also said there were a few other ones that you support as well. So Aaron, you asked this question, so if there's a specific one you want me to ask Derek about, please add it to the question. I can ask more specifically. Awesome. Can you reset or clear a device so that they do have to fill out the captive portal again?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yes, there's a button for that, and then there's also an API for that.
Can you talk a little bit more about the reports or dashboards? What can be seen in frontporch, or maybe show again some of those reports to see some of those?
Sure. So this isn't exactly how it looks. This was done for presentation, but this same data is available, basically visitor retention trends over time, and the missing persons report, the visitor report of new devices and who they belong to, services. We also have a campus report that's very similar to this one. And there's also a visitor frequency. And then there's also the ability just to see all the devices that are connected and where they're connected. So some of the reports, I think, are kind of from an IT perspective, like how can we understand the devices on our network? And then some of them are ministry oriented. Who are the people and how can we engage with them?
Specific question of, do you work with the on-premise version of Aruba?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. What is you had mentioned kind of that follow-up or retention piece. Is there anything that comes standard as far as a follow-up workflow, or is that all based on how the church wants to handle it in their unique setting?
At this point in time, that report is available, but there's not a push on that report. The API, so the data is available as the report or as like a PDF format can be easily pulled out of there, or CSV or an API. And so a church can choose to consume that in a number of different ways. And those reports we only released this in the last month for general release. And so I think we're learning about how churches would like to use those. And one of the things I'd love to see is I'd I'd love to see that information then just be made available through ministry platforms so that that becomes the real source of data. Philosophically, our belief at Front Porch is that if you never logged into Front Porch, we're okay. We would really want the data to be available to you to use how the church would want to use that, and through the church management system, which we think is the cornerstone of how churches can do ministry in this way. We'd like to have all that data just be in there.
Yeah, that single source of truth. That's awesome. Yeah. Are there any options to communicate with people through the captive portal as far as, I guess, maybe customization of what that page says? Chris, you want to take that one? What are they able to control on that captive portal page, Chris?
Right now, the captive portal page is fairly set. I mean, we add the logo, they can change the title text and the terms and conditions. But as far as that goes, that's all that we can customize on captive portal right now.
Okay, and then is this integration ready to go? Still looking for people to test, or are we starting to roll out? What's the timeline and status of all of that?
We have 2 customers up and running. So we are still firmly in the beta stage. One of our larger churches is going to go live. They've had it in what I would call a limited test. So they've had it on one of their Wi-Fi networks, and they're going to put it into full-scale production this weekend. And so we will get some really good data as we roll into next week. But yes, this is still very much a new integration. So we don't have, in all transparency, we don't have tons of data yet, but we've definitely had it running in the background for both of these churches, and all the data has been flowing in.
Awesome. Great. Well, anything else you'd like to share, Derek, as far as, I know you said there's a form on your website, so that's a good next step for anybody who's interested. And then,
we just got a couple of really good questions, Megan.
Oh, we just, can we get it before Easter? That's a good one.
Yes.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
And then the multi-site one, yes, it supports multi-site. And I don't know that Derek had a chance to show this, but the data we get on the sessions even show you can break your church up into Wi-Fi zones, and you could actually see someone moving through your campus based on their session data. So multi-site's not a problem, and also just having your own Wi-Fi zones. Derek, you can talk about that maybe for a second, how they carve those up and set those up, because I'm a little bit in the dark there.
Well, that's part of the network magic, Chris.
Network
but
food.
Here's how it works. Whenever we connect with the Wi-Fi devices, which we do typically every 3 minutes, and we sync up with the Wi-Fi controller to say, okay, well, where are all these devices located on campus? And the way to understand where they're located on campus is what access point, what Wi-Fi radio that device is connected with. And so each of those access points can be named to be in a zone. You can have more than one access point in a zone. So let's say that your worship center is covered by 4 or maybe 8 access points. All of those access points can be noted as being in the zone called worship center. Some churches do just campus level zoning, and so they might have at one campus several or a dozen different access points that cover that area. And then, yes, as they move through the campus, depending upon how granular that you choose to get with the zones, you can find out about what dwell time is in different parts of the campus.
That's awesome. I love it. You can just watch, you can see somebody go from one venue to a hallway to picking up their kids or whatever the path may be. That's awesome.
And yes, the location is available in Ministry Platform. It comes over with each session, each piece of session data.
Great. Well, thank you, Derek, so much for your time and answering questions. We got a lot of people. I have one person who said, take my money. So I think you have a couple of people who are probably already have filled out the form and are going to be wanting to talk to you very soon. So anything else either Chris or Derek would like to add as we wrap up here?
Well, thank you very much, and we will be following up with everybody who's responded here so far. And we look forward to meeting many people in the ministry platform community at Seacoast in a few weeks.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be great to have you guys there. So lots of fun.
Great stuff.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you all so much. Have a great day, and we will talk to you later.
Bye, everybody.